Hi, so today I'm going to be doing a review on a SRAM Eagle X01 drivetrain. So I've been using this drivetrain for just over a year, so I thought I'd do this video talking about my thoughts and opinions and experiences with using it over that time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the camera angle and then go into more detail about the various parts and how they've held up and their performance over that time. Okay, so I've got the camera zoomed in a bit here. So I'll start with the cassette first. The finish on this cassette is all black, apart from the 50 tooth, which is in silver. And as you can see, it's worn quite a bit, the colouring, and some of the teeth are a little bit worn down. I've just got a brand new GX here for comparison. Okay, so on to the performance of this cassette. So it's still working in all of the gears, it's not skipping in any of them, which is really impressive to me after a year's use, because before this, the longest cassette I ever had was about 8 months. Now I understand I ride quite a lot, so obviously most people will get more use out of their cassettes than I will. So onto the derailleur. As you can see, it's got a few battle scars here, but nothing too serious and no major damage. So the SRAM derailleurs stick out from the frame slightly further than Shimano ones, so they're more prone to this damage on the derailleur body as opposed to the Shimano ones. So if you're riding in rocky environments, it's just something to be aware of, because obviously you're more likely to catch this than you are a Shimano one. Next I'll move on to the clutch mechanism on these. So as opposed to the Shimano ones, which use a lever to engage and disengage the clutch, this just has the clutch always on. Now I find the clutch on these is slightly, the spring that holds it is not quite as, doesn't provide as much tension as the Shimano ones. But I find that it lasts longer than the Shimano ones. The Shimano ones tend to wear out and need replacing or retightening. I know they've addressed that on the newer 11-speed ones, but it's still an issue, and I find that the SRAM ones do last longer. Although they don't actually feel, as I say, don't have as much tension to start with. So one of my favourite features of the SRAM derailleurs is the locking button that they have. They've had this feature since the 10-speed. And basically all you do is push the cage down, press the locking button in, release the cage, and then let go of the button. It takes all the tension off the chain, allows you to get the wheel in and out really simply. It works in a similar fashion to the way the Shimano clutch works, just by removing the tension, but it has the added benefit of allowing you to be able to repair the chain or shorten the chain without having to hold it in place or bodge it with a coat hanger or something. Just a really handy little feature, and some people aren't aware that it actually is on them, so I just thought I'd point it out. Onto the jockey wheels. So SRAM have got rid of the narrow wide, or X-Sync as they call it, teeth profile that used to be on the upper jockey wheel. So the reason they've done that is because the 11-speed suffers with an issue where the chain can slip and then get caught between the jockey wheel and the cage body, because there's just not enough space, and it's been alleviated with this design by removing it. Now they've kept the X-Sync teeth profile on the lower pulley, which is now oversized. It's a 14 tooth, I believe, but it's under a lot less tension and space constraints than the upper pulley is. Okay, so next I wanted to talk about the B-screw. So this is really important that you get this set correctly on the 11 and 12 speeds, much more so than it ever was on 9 and 10 speeds. Otherwise you are going to have shifting issues because the tolerance is much tighter. So SRAM provide you with this really handy little tool for setting the B-screw. So all you do is shift it into the easiest gear, or the largest cog, and then pop the tool onto the upper jockey wheel, and then it's got some markings here, and you just adjust the B-screw until it lines up. Obviously you can measure this if you want, but the tool makes it much easier. I'll leave a link in a card to SRAM's installation of this, which explains it in much more detail, but it is very important that you get this set correctly. Most of the issues that you'll have shifting wise will generally be related to that, and you need to do it when the bike is fully compressed in its travel, if it's a full suspension, so you might need to get somebody to give you a hand to do that. Okay, so onto the chain. So these 12-speed chains use a new style power link for connecting them, which is slightly curved and sort of bean shaped. So you need to make sure that's set in the right orientation. It comes with a little arrow on it for setting the direction, so obviously the arrow needs to point in the direction that the chain would be going. You'll know if you've put it on the wrong way, because it'll because of the curve it'll skip, but just something I thought I'd point out. So originally I was running this XX01 black chain when I first got this set up, but after just over a year it developed a couple of stiff links which I just couldn't get out, so I replaced it with a GX 12-speed chain. Now all of the SRAM 12-speed stuff is interchangeable, so if you just want to run a cheaper chain or a cheaper cassette, you can just mix and match. Okay, so onto the chainring. So I was running a race face crank with a 1-up components oval chainring. Now the Eagle chainring is supposed to offer better durability and better chain retention, but obviously I can't offer any opinion on that. But the 1-up components chainring has lasted literally just over a year before it's needed replacing, which again I thought was pretty good. Okay, so finally onto the trigger shifter. If you've ever used any of SRAM's 9, 10 or 11 speed systems, you'll be familiar with how this works, but if not, I'll just quickly go over how it operates. So it's a single-way operation as opposed to Shimano's two-way. So what you do is if you want to go up the cassette or into a easier gear or into a larger cog, you would press the large paddle, and then if you want to go into a harder gear or a smaller cog, you just press the small paddle. Now you can go up multiple gears by just pushing the large paddle in, and it will shift multiple gears up, but you can't shift multiple gears down, you can only shift individually. But it does change really quick, so you can fire through a set of gears really quick. I personally prefer it over the Shimano system, but that's personal preference, and some people love the Shimano, so it's whatever you like. As far as the actual shifter itself, it's held up really well. I mean, it looks exactly as it did when I first got it. It hasn't worn or anything on the paddles, and it's really nice. This is definitely the part I would spend the money on if you are considering getting, say, a GX system, because it's a contact point and it is slightly more refined in the feel compared to the GX system, for example. So, and the cost is really minimal between them, so I'd spend the extra money on the shifter. This does have an additional feature of being able to adjust the paddle further in if you want, but the adjustment's not really that great, so it's kind of a pointless feature because it doesn't really help, but I thought I'd point it out anyway. And the next thing I want to talk about is the matchmaking system. So this allows you to attach the shifter and the brake together, so you just need the one clamp, which gives you a tidier cockpit, similar to the Shimano iSpec system. It just makes it look nice and neat. The one thing I would say about this is I wish you could adjust the shifter in more, because you haven't got that much adjustment between the grip and the shifter. I'll show you what I mean. For example, I like to have my brakes slightly in because I have fairly large hands, and I like to sit my hand at the end of the grip and then do single finger braking, which means that the shifter is just in reach, but I'd really like it to be slightly further in, just for allow for better shifting. But that may not be a concern if you've got smaller hands or you run your brakes closer to the grip. So I thought I'd show you what the shifting on this is like. It's really smooth and pretty quick. So I've not had any ghost shifting or any issues like that. If I have, it's generally been because something has got lodged between the chain and the cassette. So I'll just show you what it's like. Okay, so in summary, and my overall opinion of the SRAM Eagle X01 drivetrain, I'd have to say personally this is the best drivetrain system that I've ever used, and I'm really impressed with the performance and durability of the system. I really like as well the fact you can now mix and match it with cheaper parts, so if you want to run some GX parts or some XX1 parts, you can mix and match whichever one suits your needs. Okay, so that was a review of the SRAM Eagle X01. If you've got any comments, just leave them in the box below. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, please feel free to do so. Thumbs up are always appreciated, and thanks for watching.